Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Talks between Washington and Tehran have ended without a breakthrough, but with signals of continued engagement, including Iran's suggestion that it could dilute enriched uranium if sanctions are lifted. Yet this diplomatic opening coincides with a widening crackdown inside Iran and renewed security alerts in the Strait of Hormuz. We'll now discuss the latest with our guest, Laila Jazayeri, director of the Association of Anglo-Iranian Women in the U.K. Good to have you with us here on TVP World.
Thank you for having me on.
So I want to begin with the latest. I mean, much was touted about these talks. We didn't have a breakthrough. We have mixed signals. Where are we with this, and where do you think it's headed between any more negotiations or an outcome here that would be favorable to both sides?
Well, let me tell you, for decades, the Iranian regime has been pretending that they are negotiating. They are prepared for negotiations. They just try to buy time in order to kind of secretly advance their nuclear program to continue. So discussing about what would happen with US and Iran, at this stage we cannot really say what could happen because it's all hypothetical. I think Caroline Levitt said only the US president knows what would happen. We have to wait and see. But what we know is that the Iranian regime existence is based on two pillars. One is through internal suppression, daily execution. Two, export of terrorism, warmongering, and its nuclear program. The regime wants a nuclear bomb in order to take the rest of the world as hostage. Now, giving it up, I don't believe the regime would easily give it up. It just doesn't make sense because once it happens, if the regime really prepared to give up its nuclear program, it means it has reached a point that it sees its downfall is imminent, which inevitably would make its downfall easier for the Iranian people. Why? Because it will face protests from its own base, from within. It would giving up its nuclear program that for decades were chanting, we are here to stay, we're going to have nuclear bomb. Nobody could say the West cannot threaten us. All that disappear. So the regime has to answer its own base. And because it cannot, it would deepen its internal division. This internal rift would open, it become widen and deeper. And once this gap opens between the regime leadership and its base, who benefits from that? Iranian people who will return to the streets. So you see, I don't believe the regime would give up its nuclear program. I think it's just like for decades it's done, as I said, just buying time, pretending that we are on the table negotiating while under the table secretly they are doing what they've always done.
Mm-hmm. And it's also an interesting point that you raised because, I mean, right now we hear that the Iranians, that the regime is trying to offer some compromise, reducing, diluting that uranium enrichment to 60%. It's still insisting that should be done on its territory. But as you said, I mean, we have some very tense moments as well, more threats that we haven't seen for a while. How much leverage does Iran have to actually go ahead and keep its nuclear program, its enrichment, if at all?
As I said, the regime needs its nuclear program. The regime very existence is based on terrorism, warmongering, having the nuclear bomb. It cannot give in because if it does, then Khamenei is going to respond to the base being IRGC. And IRGC are the ones that are controlling the society. They are the apparatus of suppression, repression. Who suppressed the Iranian uprising? the IRGC, the brutal IRGC. So the regime needs to keep this IRGC. The body of the regime needs to be present. The very existence of IRGC is to keep the regime in power. So if the IRGC is gone, if you remove IRGC, the regime collapses. So Khamenei needs to contain IRGC. Giving up nuclear program, any compromise, any concession would goes down into the base of the regime, and it creates division, rifts, and then it has internal problems, and it cannot afford to have rift between the leadership and the base, because the rift only benefits. I personally welcome any concession. If the regime wants to negotiate, come to an agreement, go ahead and do it. We welcome it. Less bloodshed.
Let's talk about...
I don't think they will.
Let's talk about the IRGC. You mentioned that, so the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Now, this is significant, as you said. This is a force that very fanatically enforces those crackdowns. It's that military arm. At the same time, I'm curious, let's shift to Europe as well, because recently it was actually only the United States that had classified the IRGC as a terrorist group on that list. The Europeans have now followed. That took a long time. What is Europe's role now? I mean, traditionally, they were the ones keeping channels open to Iran. We've seen now more protests as well as in Berlin and other cities. What do you make of Europe's role in all this?
I think they have come to a conclusion that this regime should go. You know, years of appeasing Iranian regime, years of appeasement policy by European governments only emboldened the Iranian regime in its repression, suppression, execution of Iranian people inside the country, and the export of terrorism and warmongering outside Iranian borders. Look, this regime, terrorism, has reached Europe. Its missiles are dropping on drones are dropping on Ukrainian people, killing Ukrainian people. Even some of them are diverted into Polish soil. So it's not just the region, it's the Europe too. And they've realized, you know, they have tried to negotiate with the regime. The regime is not giving up its nuclear program. And then they see the protests. We all saw when millions of Iranians came to the streets, despite the suppression, despite the slaughter, they continued their protests. It rapidly developed to 400 cities across Iran. The European got the message. The Iranian people don't want this regime. This regime, from day one, has created chaos in the region for the rest of the world, and is suppressing its own people. So, and it's bound to go. And one by one, let's face it, all the power that Khamenei hold, so-called power, by creating these proxy groups in Lebanon, like Hezbollah, the Houthis, I mean, Assad fell down. They're all dismantled. Its nuclear facilities actually have been receiving big blows and dismantled. So that area, the regime is very big. There is nothing to boast about. And they see the suppression, despite the killing, people continue coming to the streets. So they can see the European, the condition, the situation that the regime is in. This is the beginning of the end for the regime. But you see, the listing IRGC is the first step. It was late. They did it decades late. Still, in where I live in UK, they haven't done it, and they must do it without any more delay. But there are more things that we should do. I think the West can still, possesses significant leverage, responsibilities to raise the cost of repression and lawlessness for the regime without any military intervention. For example, key measures apart from designating IRGC is revoking this diplomatic immunity for regime's officials, prosecuting those responsible for crimes against humanity, those who committed genocide against Iranian people under universal jurisdiction, and also cutting off its financial and logistic lifeline, ensuring that ensuring access to free internet to the Iranian people. And most importantly, recognizing the right of Iranian youth, Iranian protesters, Iranian women at the forefront of uprising.
I want to jump in on that for a moment, if I may, because, I mean, one thing I still want to get your opinion on. We have also had, you mentioned the military factor. Let's go to Strait of Hormuz for a moment. That's a vital shipping route. We know that there are U.S. forces in that area. We've had some close calls already. Now the Iranians warning again that U.S. ships should stay far away from Iran. How close are we there for miscalculation, something to spark there right now?
Well, again, as I said, it's all hypothetical. I don't know. Only United States presidents know. But what we are certain is that as long as this regime is in power, there is no peace and stability in the region. Iranian people continue to suffer. Rest of the world continue to suffer. So the solution is regime change, and that is possible by the Iranian people. We don't want anybody to come from abroad overthrow the regime for us. No, there is no need for that. There is no need for military intervention because there is a strong, powerful network of resistance inside Iran. They were the ones who were behind spread of uprising within a short period of time. And the international community, the West, should recognize this resistance, Iranian resistance. And it's got, I'm sure, I think I was on your program before, I told you, this resistance has a platform outside Iran, National Council of Resistance of Iran. There is a leadership, Mariam Rajavi, a woman, leading this network of resistance inside and outside Iran. She has a progressive plan in place for a smooth transition. We don't need external interference. They are quite capable of bringing the regime down. All we need for the West to recognize this resistance, to recognize the Iranian National Council of Resistance of Iran, and to recognize the right of this network inside Iran to self-defense, because we are dealing with heavily armed security forces, ruthless IRGC. That would not cost the West anything, and is the best option, and it's easier for the West, and it's better for the Iranian people.
Mm-hmm. So still a very complex issue there, but we'll keep covering. Thanks so much for those insights. Laila Jazayeri from the Anglo-Iranian Women in the UK. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.